Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Roads? Where we were going, we don't need roads. But what if the real-time travel miracle wasn't he in the film, but in how it barely survived its own making? Back to the Future 1985 wasn't he just a feel-good time travel comedy? It was a ticking time bomb of studio panic, last-minute recasts, near cancellations, and creative gambles that almost erased it from history. Michael J. Fox wasn't the first Marty McFly. The original lead quit after 1 week. The DeLorean-S iconic flux capacitor, invented in a single brainstorm session over coffee, and that perfect 1.21 gigawatts line, almost cut for being too nerdy. Today we reveal 20 weird, wild, and nearly lost secrets behind Back to the Future, from studio executives who called it unfilmable to a director who mortgaged his house to finish it. And the bonus fact? It involves a real-life time capsule buried by Doc Brown himself. Smash that like button, subscribe, and fire up the flux capacitor because time waits for no one. Michael J. Fox? Wasn't he the first? Marty McFly? Eric Stoltz? Wasn't it almost killed the film? Before Michael J. Fox became synonymous with Marty McFly, the role belonged to Eric Stoltz, a serious method actor fresh off Mask. Director Robert Zemeckis cast him for his dramatic depth. But after 5 weeks of shooting, the footage felt wrong. Stoltz played Marty like a brooding poet, not a quick-witted teen. Test screenings where disastrous audiences found him unrelatable and emotionless. Zemeckis faced a nightmare, $4 million spent, and no movie. In a move that stunned Hollywood, he fired Stoltz and recast Fox, who was already committed to the sitcom Family Ties. Desperate, Zemeckis struck a secret deal. Fox would film Back to the Future at night and on weekends, then rush back to NBC for Family Ties taping by dawn. He slept just 4 hours a day for months. The switch wasn't just a casting change, it saved the film from oblivion. Without Fox's charm and comic timing, Back to the Future might have vanished into obscurity. Universal Studios hated the script, calling it unfilmable and too weird. When Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis first pitched Back to the Future, studios recoiled. Columbia Pictures passed, saying time travel confused audiences. Disney rejected it outright over the incest-adjacent plot point, Marty's mom flirting with him. Universal finally greenlit it, but only after Zemeckis proved himself with Romancing the Stone. Even then, execs were skeptical. They called the script a comedy with no jokes and a sci-fi film with no aliens. One memo bluntly stated, "This will never work." During production, studio heads constantly pressured Zemeckis to simplify the time travel rules or cut Doc Brown's eccentricities. But he refused. The heart of the movie is the weirdness, he argued, what audiences didn't know. Every laugh, every paradox, every hoverboard dream was a rebellion against corporate doubt. Not just a script, a manifesto for imaginative filmmaking. Zemeckis mortgaged his house to finish the film. With production spiraling past budget and Fox's schedule causing massive delays, Universal threatened to shut down Back to the Future entirely. Desperate to buy time, Zemeckis did the unthinkable. He mortgaged his own home to fund additional reshoots. He needed to refine the tone, reshoot Marty's chemistry with his parents, and perfect the clock tower climax. If the movie failed, I'd lose everything, he later admitted. Fortunately, Steven Spielberg, executive producer and secret champion of the project, used his clout to convince Universal to stay patient. The gamble paid off. The final cut tested through the roof. But for months, Zemeckis lived under the shadow of financial ruin. This wasn't just passion, it was personal sacrifice. And it gave us a film that redefined what a summer blockbuster could be: smart, heartfelt, and timeless. The DeLorean was almost a fridge, yes, a refrigerator. In early drafts, Doc Brown's time machine wasn't a stainless steel sports car, it was a refrigerator. Bob Gale imagined Marty climbing inside a modified Frigidaire to travel through time. But Zemeckis quickly realized the danger. Kids might actually try to climb into real fridges, risking suffocation. Tragically, this fear wasn't unfounded. Urban legends of children dying in abandoned appliances were common. So they scrapped the idea. They needed something flashy, futuristic, and safe. Enter the DeLorean DMC-12, a failed car with gull-wing doors and a cult following. Though the company had gone bankrupt in 1982, Zemeckis secured 3 models for $30,000 each, the irony. A symbol of automotive failure became one of cinema's most iconic vehicles, not a fridge, a legend on wheels. Christopher Lloyd didn't understand the script at first. When Christopher Lloyd was cast as Doc Brown, he reportedly read the script and asked, "Is this a comedy or a horror film?" Known for intense roles like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Lloyd initially played Doc with brooding intensity, muttering lines like a mad scientist from a 1950s B-movie. Zemeckis had to gently steer him toward absurdity. "He's not scary," the director explained. "He's a genius who's also a little bit unhinged in a fun way." Lloyd embraced the shift, adding physical quirks, wild eyes, flailing arms, that manic laugh. He even improvised the iconic "Great Scott!" exclamation, borrowing it from old radio dramas. What audiences saw as effortless eccentricity was actually a complete reinvention of Lloyd's approach. Not just acting. Alchemy. The 1.21 gigawatts line almost got cut for being too nerdy. Studio executives worried that 1.21 gigawatts would fly over audiences' heads. "No one knows what a gigawatt is," one exec argued. They pushed for simpler lines like a ton of power or enough juice to light a city, but Gale and Zemeckis held firm. They wanted the science to feel real even if it was fictional. The phrase stuck, and thanks to the film, gigawatt entered pop culture lexicon. Fun fact, the script originally spelled it gigawatts, a phonetic joke based on Doc's wild pronunciation. Only later did they realize the correct spelling, but kept the mispronunciation for character. Today, it is quoted in physics classrooms worldwide. Not a throwaway line, a linguistic time capsule. The clock tower wasn't real, it was a giant painted facade. Hill Valley's iconic clock tower, entirely fake, built on the Universal backlot. It was a 35-foot cardboard and wood facade with no interior. The lightning strike sequence required meticulous planning, wires, rain machines, and a stunt double suspended on cables. The fire from the DeLorean's departure was created with propane jets and reflective foil to simulate energy. Zemeckis shot the sequence over 9 nights, fighting wind and rain delays. Amazingly, the entire town square courthouse, diner, theater was constructed from scratch, then later preserved as a permanent studio tour attraction. What looks like a quaint 1950s town was, in reality, a cinematic illusion built in weeks. Not a location. A time machine made of plywood and dreams. Crispin Glover fought to keep George McFly weird. Crispin Glover, who played the awkward George McFly, insisted on making the character as strange and off-kilter as possible. He walked on his toes, wore lifts in one shoe to create a limp, and ad-libbed bizarre mannerisms like sniffing books before reading them. Some crew members found him difficult, but Zemeckis loved the unpredictability. George needed to feel like someone the world had ground down, but still had a spark, he said. Glover's commitment paid off. George's transformation feels earned because his starting point is so painfully real. Tragically, Glover later sued the studio over the use of his likeness in Back to the Future Part II, a landmark case that changed Hollywood's rules on digital recreations. His performance wasn't just acting, it was a statement on dignity. The skateboard chase used hidden wires and a secret stunt double. The famous skateboard escape from Biff's gang. Michael J. Fox couldn't actually skateboard well. Most of the complex tricks were performed by stunt double Per Willinder, a pro skater from Powell, Peralta. Fox did close-ups and dialogue shots, but the high-speed alley run, the truck jump, and the trash can slide, all Willinder. Hidden wires stabilized Fox during wide shots, and camera angles masked the switch. The crew shot the sequence in downtown Los Angeles at dawn to avoid traffic. Fox later admitted he faked it like a pro, yet the sequence feels seamless because editing, timing, and trust turned impossibility into movie magic. Not just a chase, a masterclass in illusion. Huey Lewis wrote, "The power of love after reading the script." Huey Lewis was just hired to contribute a song he was given the full script before writing The Power of Love. Zemeckis wanted a track that captured Marty's journey. Upbeat, hopeful, and slightly nostalgic. Lewis initially turned down the offer, fearing movie songs were commercial traps, but after reading the story, he was hooked. It's about believing in yourself, he said. He wrote the song in 2 days, and it became the first one hit from a film soundtrack in over a decade. Ironically, Lewis also appears in the film as the battle of the band's judge who rejects Marty's performance. "I am afraid you were just too darn loud," he deadpans. The meta joke delighted audiences and launched a rock anthem that defined the 80s. Not just music, narrative glue. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because behind every classic film is a story even stranger than fiction. The Enchantment Under the Sea dance was shot in one long take. The climactic dance sequence where Marty plays Johnny B. Goode while his parents kiss was filmed as one continuous 4-minute take. Zemeckis used hidden cuts, dolly tracks, and precise choreography to maintain the illusion. Fox had to lip sync while playing air guitar, time his stumble into the amp, and hit emotional beats, all without a single reset. The band on stage? Real musicians coached to react authentically. When Marvin Berry calls his cousin Chuck, it's a wink to rock history. The pressure was immense. If anyone flubbed, they'd lose daylight and blow the budget. They got it on the third try. What looks like joyful chaos was, in fact, military-grade precision, not improvisation, orchestration. Doc Brown's lab was filled with real, working props. Every gadget in Doc's garage, from the model train to the plutonium chamber, was fully functional or meticulously detailed. The team consulted with real scientists to make the lab feel plausible. The Mr. Fusion home reactor, built from a coffee grinder and juicer parts. Even the fish that flops when Doc zaps the banana was a mechanical puppet. Zemeckis insisted, if the audience believes the lab, they'll believe the time machine. This commitment to tactile realism grounded the sci-fi in warmth and humor. Years later, Spielberg said, "That garage feels like a character, not set dressing, world building." The movie almost ended with Marty erased from existence. Early drafts featured a much darker ending. Marty returns to 1985 only to find he's slowly fading from photos because he altered the timeline too much. The final scene would show him vanishing entirely, leaving Doc to whisper, "No one should know too much about their future." Test audiences were devastated. "It felt like punishment," said one reader. Zemeckis scrapped it, opting for hope. Marty wakes to a better life, his family thriving. The rewrite reinforced the film's core message: the past can be changed, and the future is yours to shape. Not despair, empowerment. Leah Thompson was only 23, playing a 17-year-old and her own mother. Leah Thompson was already a rising star when cast as Lorraine Baines, but playing a teenager flirting with her own son required delicate balance. To avoid creepiness, she and Fox focused on awkward comedy, not romance. Thompson studied 1950s mannerisms, how girls giggled, crossed their legs, twirled straws. She even dyed her hair platinum blonde to look more period accurate. Behind the scenes, she became a fierce advocate for tonal consistency, ensuring Lorraine's arc from boy-crazy teen to confident mom felt authentic. Her performance anchors the film's emotional core, not just a role, a tightrope walk of humor and heart. The DeLorean couldn't hit 88 mph, so they cheated with camera angles. The real DeLorean topped out at 60 mph. To sell the 88 mph time travel launch, the crew used forced perspective, mounting the car on a rig, shooting at low angles, and adding motion blur in post. The tire screech? Recorded from a Lamborghini. Even the time circuits were hand-painted LEDs. Nothing moved as fast as it seemed, yet audiences believed it. That's the power of cinematic illusion, not speed, suggestion. Bob Gale based Marty's family on his own high school yearbook. While cleaning his parents' attic, Bob Gale found his father's 1947 high school yearbook. He wondered, would we have been friends if we were the same age? That question became the seed of Back to the Future, the McFly family dynamics. George's timidity, Lorraine's popularity, Marty's desire to prove himself were inspired by Gale's own reflections on legacy and identity. Even Biff's bullying mirrored real classmates. The film isn't, just sci-fi, deeply personal, not fantasy, family history. The film's budget was slashed mid-production for a comedy. Universal cut Back to the Future's budget from $20 million to $14 million halfway through shooting, unheard of for a studio tentpole. The reason? Early dailies looked too small, too talky. Zemeckis had to eliminate scenes, combine sets, and reuse costumes. The Twin Pines Mall became Lone Pine Mall after one tree prop broke and wasn't replaced. These constraints forced creativity. Limitations bred innovation, not a setback, a catalyst. The dog Einstein was named after the physicist as a joke. Doc Brown, as loyal companion Einstein, is far more than comic relief. He has a brilliant scientific in-joke. Named after Albert Einstein, the father of relativity, the dog stars in the film S.'s first-time travel test. Doc sends him 1 minute into the future. When Einstein reappears panting and exhausted, it's a playful nod to time dilation, the idea that time passes differently for travelers at high speeds. The gag not only introduces the rules of time travel with humor, but also reveals Doc's compassion. Even a genius needs someone to care for. Director Robert Zemeckis noted, Einstein makes Doc feel human, not just a mad scientist. The dog's presence warms the film's high-concept sci-fi, grounding wild ideas in emotional reality. Not just a pet, a narrative device with fur, loyalty, and perfect comedic timing, proving that even theoretical physics needs a best friend. The film's release was delayed because of a real-life nuclear panic. Back to the Future was originally slated for a May 1985 release, but Universal Studios pushed it to July 3rd, a decision driven by both practical and political unease. Mid-1980s America was gripped by Cold War anxiety, with films like The Day After stoking public fears of nuclear disaster. Studio execs worried that a plot involving plutonium, 1.21 gigawatts, and a nuclear-powered car might feel too unsettling for spring audiences. Combined with Zemeckis' need for reshoots after recasting Marty, the delay became strategic. The new summer slot placed it in blockbuster territory and gave the team crucial weeks to refine the tone and pacing. The gamble paid off. It opened to rave reviews and became the one film of 1985 holding the box office for 11 weeks. Not a setback. A masterstroke of timing and cultural sensitivity. The hoverboard was real, but only for one shot. That tantalizing to be continued teaser at the end of Back to the Future featured something astonishing. A real, working hoverboard. For just one shot, the effects team built a prototype using compressed air jets that lifted the board 6 inches off the ground on perfectly smooth studio flooring. It was noisy, unstable, and far too dangerous for Michael J. Fox to ride, but it hovered. For 3 magical seconds, Marty appeared to defy gravity without wires or optical tricks. Unfortunately, the technology couldn't be scaled for part watts, so those scenes relied on harnesses, blue screen, and clever editing. But that final glimpse in the original film? Genuine. Not CGI, not illusion of fleeting real-world echo of the future, not fantasy, a prototype of wonder. Bonus fact: in 2015, the year Marty travels to in Part 2, Universal Studios opened a time capsule buried in 1985 inside. A letter signed Emmett L. Brown, vintage Back to the Future props, and a VHS tape of fan messages. The letter read, "The future is whatever you make it, so make it a good one." It was part of a publicity stunt, but also a heartfelt tribute. What audiences didn't know, Zemeckis and Gale approved every item. The capsule wasn't just marketing. It was a message in a bottle from one era to another, proof that great stories outlive their time. Back to the Future wasn't just a movie. It was a miracle cobbled together from studio doubt, sleepless nights, and sheer belief in a story about second chances. From fridge time machines to mortgage-risking directors, from skateboard doubles to gigawatt dreams, it has a film that refused to fade away. And like Doc Brown said, your future is whatever you make it. So go make yours legendary.
Your future is whatever you make it. So make it a good one. Both of you.
Drop a comment with your favorite time travel moment, hit subscribe for more cinema secrets, and remember, where we're going, we don't need roads, but we do need you watching.